always loved having ADHD. My favorite aunt had it too, so when I was diagnosed as a kid, it was like getting to join this cool club. But after a year of research, I've discovered it's responsible for a lot of challenges that I didn't realize. I still love my ADHD brain, but some days when I'm sleep deprived, when my symptoms are worse than usual, and I'm buried under piles of research talking about the potential negative consequences of having ADHD, I have to wonder, would I rather not have it?
Hi, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction, and today I have a very special guest all the way from Los Angeles, Jessica McCabe, who has created, produced, and runs her own show on YouTube called How to ADHD. And I'm really tickled to have her. We're basically focusing on millennials, which, means people born in the early 80s to the 2000s. And my daughter is in that generation. My daughter Lucy is 27, and my two sons are 24 and 21. So I guess I have three millennials as children. And that's your audience as well, Jessica, correct?
Yeah, largely. We have people as young as 6, but for the most part, it's kind of that emerging adults right now. It's people who have graduated school or didn't make it through school and are trying to find their way in life and realizing, oh, wait, this is a lot harder than it looked for my parents.
Uh-huh. How old are you?
I'm in my early 30s. I'm like barely on the edge of what would be considered a millennial.
Uh-huh. Okay. And may I ask, are you single, married?
I'm engaged,
Oh, wow.
Actually.
Excellent. So obviously you don't have any children yet?
Nope, not yet.
And how did you get diagnosed with ADHD?
I was actually diagnosed at the age of 12 after my aunt was diagnosed. She was actually diagnosed because her son was diagnosed, because at the time that was kind of the only way that they caught it in women was like, that seems an awfully lot like me. Uh-huh. So I was struggling. My mom was like, she's an awful lot like her aunt. Maybe we should get her checked out. So so she did. And yeah, I was, definitely had it. At the time I was diagnosed ADD, but now I guess it's considered ADHD still. So it's ADHD-C is my technical diagnosis now.
Well, so 20 years ago, that's when adults rarely got diagnosed and females rarely got diagnosed. And so you were lucky. You were lucky that someone picked it up.
Yeah, incredibly lucky. Our generation, I think, was lucky in a way that the previous generation was not, which is that not only are women and adults in general and girls allowed to have ADHD now, like it's actually being recognized and treated, where I don't think it really was last generation, not in the same way.
Yeah.
ADHD is no longer just a diagnosis of you're bad, let's fix you. Now it's like, oh, okay, your brain works differently, and this is something that's treatable, and we can support you and help you reach your potential.
Absolutely. I have both ADHD and dyslexia, and I wouldn't trade either one for the world. And all three of my kids inherited my ADD, and they're all very glad they have it. So, I've spent a long time trying to reframe this condition so people see it as a trait, rather than a disorder. And it has many positives that go with it. And there are obstacles that have to be overcome, of course. So what was the hardest part for you in dealing with the ADHD?
Honestly, I had it reframed really well for me as well. I had books of, pictures of brains and scans and things like that to look at. And my aunt was like super cool. I loved that I had the same thing that she had because she was so cool. It felt like I got to join this cool club. And I love the reframing that you've done. And I've actually used it on my show, talking about how we have these Ferrari engine brains and we just have bicycle brakes and we just have to work on a brake so we can win races. I think it's a beautiful way of explaining it and so accurate. And I would really love to see more research on the strengths of ADHD. And I think that's starting to happen.
Yeah, it is, thank goodness. And the Ferrari engine with bicycle brakes, it really does sum it up. We have this amazing power. We just need help in learning how to control it.
Yeah. I've definitely found that to be true. And that has been my biggest challenge. And I think that that's common to my generation is there are so many opportunities available to us and work is so much more flexible than it used to be, which is a great advantage to us in some ways, but it can also be we can get so easily distracted that I started about 10 different careers before I finally decided to start a YouTube channel. So I think that was my biggest challenge was not being able to maintain focus on one goal, just jumping all over the place. Like I needed not only brakes, I think I needed like guardrails, or like bumpers, how you have when you go bowling.
Yeah.
I think ADHDers tend to be fairly empathetic and philanthropic, and the fact that I'm able to help people has kept me focused on it like nothing else. But I wouldn't have even started this if I hadn't gone to a coach. I went through therapy for a couple of years, and then I found a life coach. I didn't know about ADHD coaches at the time, but I found a life coach, and she challenged a lot of the negative beliefs that I had about myself and my career that were limiting me. And she kind of made me stop everything and take a look at what I really wanted. And nothing that I was trying to pursue was actually something that I wanted. So, of course, I wasn't really putting in the effort.
Right.
So that gave me the space to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and I started the channel. Yeah, she was really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for this generation especially, coaching is a really powerful thing, or accountability of any sort, because there's so many opportunities available to us and so many distractions that can distract us. It's really important to have somebody help you keep on track, I think.
I think it's important for everyone, not just people with ADHD, because we live in the age of distraction,
Yeah, I feel so fortunate. I really do. And if it wasn't for all the hard work and the research and the advocacy that the generation before me did, I wouldn't have this. I would not know what I was struggling with. I would just feel like a failure. And I'm really grateful. I think it's a wonderful time to have ADHD.
It is, and it didn't always used to be. It's a lot of people just languished, and if they succeeded, it was by luck and by the grace of God kind of thing. And now we have much better systems in place. There's still a lot of stigma and prejudice and ignorance around it, so we need people like you out there, spreading the good word and not the ignorant word.
Yeah, it's amazing how much misinformation there is about ADHD, even still. Like, the amount of people who still will contend that it's not real when we've, figured out where it comes from genetically. Like, it's just wild to me. When we've isolated genes and we can see the brain size difference in meta studies, right? I just don't understand it. But there's this idea that there's this big conspiracy. It's this big pharma conspiracy that they're just trying to drug everybody. And I'm like, I mean, they're trying to sell medication. That's their job, right? But that they sell other medications too, right?
Right.
It's not just ADHD medication that's being sold.
Right. I mean, we don't say headaches don't exist because Bayer aspirin is trying to take over the world,
Yeah, exactly. But I think ADHD is really hard to understand. Until I started doing my own research, I had ADHD and I had a lot of misconceptions about it. So I do have a lot of empathy for people who don't get it or who think that it's just normal, because sometimes they have it and they don't realize it. I see that a lot. But other times they think, well, yeah, okay, you forget your keys occasionally. So do I. Right. What's the big deal? Why do you get a pill for it? Right.
It's sort of like not too long ago, people didn't understand depression, and they'd say, well, everyone is sad now and then.
Exactly.
And the difference is how sad and for how long, and same thing with ADD. We those of us who have this trait, well, we're more apt to forget our keys or to put something off. But on the other hand, we're also apt to do what you've done, start our own business. We're the entrepreneurs.
Right. ADHDers are 3 times as likely to start their own business. And I imagine that that's going to rise as, with the internet and as accessible as everything is now, you can start your own business. I mean, all I wanted to do was to keep track of all the expert advice I could find in one place. And 20 years ago, that would have been a notebook. And now I'm like, well, let me make a film series about it and put it up on the internet. And now we've got over 80,000 people watching and benefiting from it.
You have 80,000 people watching your YouTube channel. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's really necessary. There's some amazing podcasts out there, and there's incredible blogs and everything. And I was really surprised to find that nobody was really doing anything in the video space for ADHD. As prevalent as it is, I was really surprised, and I was like, well, I'll do it.
And what is the format? Do you interview people, or how do you do it?
So it started out, well, first of all, I was originally going to call my show How Not to ADHD, because that's really all I knew at the time was like, this is the way not to do this.
Right.
But my my partner suggested that, no, you can learn this stuff and be an expert at it. And I was like, I love to research, so okay, I'll do it. So it just started with me just voraciously reading everything that I could find about ADHD and starting to learn how to read studies and journals. And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work at first, but I'm slowly getting better at it. And I don't remember the question. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. We were talking about how you got into this and how you made it happen, and a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of tracking down. And you probably had to sort of get a PhD in ADD.
I essentially did, and for a long time, I was super nervous. I can tell you this now. I was super nervous that someone like you would come along and see this show and be like, what is she doing? This is completely wrong. She's like ruining, because I know how horrible misinformation can be, and that's worse than no information. So I would stay up so late. I would research obsessively, trying to make sure that I got it right. And I had so much insecurity because I was like, I am an expert in no way. I have ADHD, and that is it. After that, I'm trying to get this information from researchers and doctors and disseminate that knowledge. And I felt so insecure about it, but I knew that it was important. And when it started really resonating with people, and when Chad reached out to me and wanted to, they actually asked if I would be one of their spokespeople, I was like, okay, I'm doing something right. And I don't have to know everything to start. And I wish that I could have told that to myself when I was younger. Like, you don't have to be perfect to start making a difference in the world.
Well, Jessica, when I wrote Driven to Distraction way back in 1994, I felt exactly the same way. I said, I'm not really a researcher, and these people are going to come by and critique everything I have to say. And some people did. Some people ridiculed my whole idea that it can be a positive. But I had truth on my side. And we ADDers, we tend to be bold and take chances. So it sounds like both you and I took a chance, and it worked out.
Yeah, and you've touched so many lives. I mean, I posted on my Facebook page about it, and people were like, tell him he absolutely changed my life. Somebody saw you in ADD and loving it, and she got diagnosed after that. Brett Thornhill, who I just did an interview with, is an ADHD coach who helps so many people and does his own podcast now. And he says that you changed his life completely. Your strength-based approach completely changed how he saw his own ADHD right when he got diagnosed, and now he's able to help others change their lives. It's just, you never know how far it will reach. And I researched you too when I first started my show, and it just felt like you were giving us hugs through the screen. I watched some of your videos and it was just amazing. And it was like, yes, that's what we need. We need to know that, yes, we have challenges. Yes, there are strategies that we'll need to use to overcome them, but there's also so many strengths that come with ADHD, and we can't forget about that.
Absolutely, and it's very kind of you to say. But don't you agree the strength-based approach is the way to go? Because approaching this just as a disability, it almost creates a disability. You feel ashamed. You feel less than. You feel, and what we need to do is, sure, we have challenges to take care of, but we want to own and enjoy and celebrate our strengths, because the strengths we have can't be bought and can't be taught.
Right. No, exactly. And yeah, I was talking about that in the interview with Brett. If I had judged myself by my ability to be a housewife, and that's what I focused on my entire life, was like, how can I be a better housewife? I would live my whole life feeling like a failure and maybe eventually adequate, right? But the fact that I'm creative and that my brain moves a million miles a minute has been really helpful in this sphere. And I read once that successful people focus on what they're good at. They don't focus on what they're bad at. Yeah, you have to get good at it to a certain level so that your life doesn't completely fall apart. But if we spend all our time there, we're never going to capitalize on our strengths, and we're never going to bring our gifts to the world.
No, it's so sad to see people who spend a lifetime trying to get good at what they're bad at,
Yeah.
Instead of doing what they're good at. You have to get good enough so that disorganization doesn't keep you from reaching your goals. But that doesn't mean you have to be Martha Stewart.
Right.
And you've figured this all out at the tender age of 30-something. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
It's been amazing. Teaching it has really helped. And then also listening to the tribe. Connecting with the tribe has been so powerful. First of all, I think anytime you want to learn something, try to teach it. You really start to learn it. And then people will challenge you, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I was wrong about that. And then that helps as well.
There's an old saying in medical school, see one, do one, teach one.
Yeah.
and that's sort of, when you can actually teach it, you've mastered it pretty well. How do you connect with the tribe? What is your by the tribe you mean all the world of ADHD, right?
Yeah. I did it through the channel. People started saying, that's me. They started seeing what I was saying about my stories, because generally the way my episodes go is I talk about, okay, this is something that I'm struggling with and that many ADHDers struggle with. Here's why. Sometimes I'll explain what's happening in the brain, and sometimes, I'll just go into, okay, it's an executive function thing or whatever it is. I'll explain it, and that helps to take away some of the shame. I think that once we understand why we struggle with it, we don't just think, I'm just a horrible person for struggling with it. And then I'll introduce a solution and I'll explain a solution. So I expected that what would be most powerful for people was what I was looking originally to get out of it, which is great, a ton of tools in one place, fantastic. But that's not actually what turned out to be the case. What seemed to be the most powerful to people was hearing somebody else tell the story of their struggle. And then they did the same for me. They would talk about what they were struggling with along the same lines, and I felt connected and I felt less alone. And it was incredibly powerful. So a lot of times it was in the comments. People will tweet at me on Twitter. I will get emails. Sometimes people write me letters, which is amazing. I have people that I Skype with around the world that are helping me research this. And it's just been an incredible experience to connect with people. I know you talk about Vitamin Connect, and I think in person, absolutely. But I think one of the benefits of having the technology to speak with people over the internet is you can find your tribe so much easier. If you live in a small town and nobody thinks ADHD exists, you can connect with people who do and get that support.
Oh, yes. And I don't mean, Vitamin Connect only in person. The great blessing of our technology is that we can connect in ways that just were impossible throughout human history. And now, well, look what you're doing. I mean, it wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
So I love our technology. I just also know if we don't use it right, it can end up using us.
No, and that's absolutely true. And I get a lot of that too. I asked the brains. I call my ADHDers brains on the show because I'm talking to their brains. If they're there, it's because their brain brought them there.
Yeah.
So one of them,
the brains. That's great.
That, and I call the people who support them, who love and support them, hearts, because it's their heart that brought them to the channel. They care so much about somebody with ADHD, and they want to figure out how to help. And I think that it's. Yeah. I mean, I value them so much because there's so much that my mom, who does not have ADHD, was able to do for me in terms of helping me get organized and on track. That I think, if she had ADHD, she wouldn't have been able to do quite the same way.
Right. Now, my wife, Sue, takes care of the four of us by, creating structures and keeping us on track. And we all need those people. They're wonderful. I mean, it's a group effort. We all, if we can develop our strengths and get help with the rest, then things work out well.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the brains said that things take her so much longer, and it's really frustrating for her. It takes her so much longer than her peers, and she feels like she's smarter than them, but it takes her longer. And I asked her, is it distractions or overwhelm or what is it? And she says, yeah, mostly distractions. And I think with the technology that we have available right now, as advantageous to us as it can be in so many ways, there really is the challenge there of everything feels urgent, and ADHDers tend to respond to what's urgent rather than what's important. It feels important, right? There's a text message. Oh, I have to get that right away. The phone rings. There's Facebook message pops up. There's just so many things that grab our attention immediately that we feel like we have to respond to.
Well, I often say there's something irresistible about an unopened message. There
is, yeah, and I think part of it is the little dopamine hit that we get.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's very rewarding.
Yes.
But part of it, too, is if I don't do this right now, I'm going to forget. I'm not going to come back to this. Right?
Yes. Do it now is one of my favorite mottos. What do you think of the stereotype of millennials as lazy and materialistic?
I think, honestly, it's the same as the stereotype of ADHD people as lazy. I think it's a lazy assessment.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think if you look closer, okay, there were incredibly high student loan debts in addition to a great economic downturn right as we were leaving college. Of course we went back to stay with our parents, right? Of course Of course that happened for many people, but it's also not the same for everybody, right? If you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD, and if you've met one millennial, you've met one millennial.
Very
right?
good, yes.
And
yes,
also,
yes.
Do we take more selfies? Well, yeah, we have a camera in our pocket, right?
Because we
have
can,
social media.
Exactly.
It was a lot harder to do if all you had was a Polaroid and the mail.
Right, exactly. Now, do you take medication for your ADD?
I do, yeah. I take 5-ants.
That's my favorite. Meds don't work for me, so I don't take them, but all 3 of my children do, and my daughter takes 5-ants. I think that's if you had to. Well, obviously, the best medication is the one that works, but I've had the best luck with 5-ants in my practice.
I like it a lot. I started with Ritalin. I went to Adderall XR as that came out. Briefly, somebody decided to try me on Strattera, which did not work for me at all.
No,
and then finally, I'm on 5-ants, and it's amazing. I feel like myself without a 30-pound weight attached.
That's a great description. What do you say to the people who are so critical of medication for ADD?
I actually have a video coming out this week that's just a letter to my mom, because there's so much criticism of people drugging their kids, and I think that's left over from it's a stereotype left over from days when maybe they just were trying to treat bad behavior and they would over-medicate kids, right? But it's not the case anymore, right? So I wrote a letter called What I Want to Say to My Mom Who Drugged Me. And it's just a letter thanking her. I am so grateful that there's something that I can take that allows me to tap into my true potential.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's really like eyeglasses,
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, can I get through the day without my glasses or contacts? Sure, but I'm going to bump into everything. My eyes are going to hurt, right? People are going to look at me like I'm crazy.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, I'm going to be exhausted. And if I'm taking it as an adult, am I drugging myself because I'm tired of dealing with my own bad behavior? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it comes from a place of ignorance. And again, I have a lot of empathy. These stereotypes are perpetuated by the media. There was an episode of Kimmy Schmidt, and I loved that show. And it was very smart and very funny. And then they did an episode where they were drugging all the kids, and they were literally walking around the playground like zombies. And it's just, I don't understand. I don't think they understand that the harm that they're doing, because these kinds of things keep people from getting the treatment they need.
I know, and that's the sad part, where people are afraid and they say, oh, no, I'm not going to drug my child, all this kind of stuff. And they say, what about the side effects? I say, well, what you really ought to worry about are the side effects of not taking the medication.
I'm so glad you said that. And I'd be curious what you think those side effects are, because that was something that I put at the end of the video is like, their ADHD meds can take time to find the right dose. They don't work for everybody, and they can come with side effects. Not treating ADHD comes with side effects too.
Absolutely. Years of underachievement, frustration, and the basically lowered self-esteem and not reaching your potential. I mean, those are severe side effects, and people can live an entire life marginalized, underachieving, frustrated, out of some misguided notion that taking a medication is somehow against the rules or dangerous or part of the pharma conspiracy. These kind of silly ideas that are rooted in ignorance really can ruin lives.
Right, and they do. I hear from parents all the time that are like, I don't want to give my kids medication. What about marijuana? What about this? What about? I'm just like, oh, God. Okay, there's still so much work that needs to be done. The information is there. The scientists have it. The researchers have it. The doctors, most doctors have it. There are still doctors that I hear from that are like, oh, well, you can't have, and I was told this too at first, you can't have ADHD. You're getting A's. Well,
yes, exactly. Oh, if you're a high achiever, very unlikely you'll get diagnosed.
Right. They're missing. They missed the twice exceptional students. Right.
Yeah.
The people who had ADHD and were also gifted. But it's getting better now. But there is still so much work to be done, and I'm absolutely committed to doing my part to help disseminate this knowledge.
Well, you are one impressive woman, Jessica. I just can't tell you. I'm just so glad we found you. I'm so glad you came on the podcast. You are doing an incredible service, and I'm really tickled to have you. Thank you so much for coming on Distraction.
It was such a pleasure. It was amazing to talk to you. This was actually one of my goals for the show, was eventually I want to talk to Dr. Hallowell.
Well, it's my honor and pleasure, and we're on the same team, Jessica.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Gosh, that was great. I want to thank Jessica so much. What a wonderful person she is, Jessica McCabe, and her YouTube show, How to ADHD, turning ADHD into a verb. I think that's very clever. Very smart woman, and gosh, just embodies the best of millennials, the best of ADHD, the best of life. I mean, here she is, an entrepreneur, really working hard, modest, but also ambitious and hardworking, and waiting tables and producing a YouTube show that has 80,000 followers. She's on her way to really making an impact in this world. And I'm so impressed and really happy to share her with all of you listening. Please be in touch with us. Tell us what you want to hear more about. Tell us your reactions. We depend upon your feedback. So please be in touch. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to stop by Jessica's YouTube page, How to ADHD, this Thursday, because that's when she's going to release the video I did with her. She's really cool. You'll love her YouTube page. She's just a savvy, funny, lively, smart woman. And I think you'll really enjoy the interview we did together. That's at youtube.com/how-to-ADHD. youtube.com/how-to-ADHD. We'll put the link on our website and in the show notes. Thanks so much. This is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our producer is Sarah Gurton, our sound engineer is Scott Person, and our music was created by Mark Berman.